And welcome back to another episode of Will of the Council. It's your boy Emva. We have Kaiva in the Dino domain.
Shut up!
Hakva in the Worm Winds.
Where the hell am I?
And as always, we've got Mistva in the Face Up Extra. How are you all doing today? Good afternoon, Jank enthusiasts. I'm MBT, and this is 10-Minute Testing. Crossover Breakers is, without question, one of the most impactful deck build sets of all time. From RYU-GE to Malice, almost every card committed to cardboard seems playable. Except you may have forgotten that this, like most deck build packs, contains 3 archetypes. Today we're going to be taking a look at the red-headed stepchild of crossover breakers, RYU-GE. But first, this video is sponsored by Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck. Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck is a one-stop shop for all things Yu-Gi-Oh! They're responsible for the pack opener that makes series like Progression possible. They've got strategy articles for those looking to flesh out their fundamentals. They're the most complete repository of deck lists and results from regionals and YCSs online. And they've also got cube and draft infrastructure that's finally seeing use now that Yu-Gi-Oh! Players have come to the light of Limited. There's a good chance that any Yu-Gi-Oh! Content you see on YouTube has Yu-Gi-Oh! Pro Deck's many tendrils somewhere within its DNA. So why not go to the source and improve your game, draft with friends, or just see what 11-year-olds are playing in their Blue Eyes decks this month? Head on over to YGOPRODECK.com. Now back to the video. Now, if you're unfamiliar, RYU-GE is a series of sea serpent, worm, and dinosaur monsters, one of which is a light dragon ritual. They can be played pure, but they also have a ton of applications and strategies that are already in on one of those typings. Today, we'll be looking at 3 such strategies.
Are you gay?
Firstly, let's begin with pure. This is a pretty good time to explain the conceit of RYU-GE. There are 3 different typings of big evil monsters, each of which has their own associated continuous spell, which protects them all and gives their associated RYU-GE a special ability. Dino Domains gives them 300 attack and your dinosaurs a monster negate. Sea Spires protects them from battle and gives your sea serpents a compulse. And Worm Winds is Dimensional Fissure and gives your worms an attack modifier. Each typing also has a location in which they want to be. Emva wants to be in the graveyard, Hakva wants to be banished, and Kaiva wants to be in the hand. This all comes together with their field spell, which puts all of them exactly where they need to be, and Mistva, a ritual pendulum, which acts as a searcher that can also set all of the continuouses. It sounds like a lot to keep track of, but in practice, it's about as complex as putting the red monster in the red hole. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First up, we've got 3 copies of Mistva, which is a pendulum monster. During the main phase, can add a non-pendulum RYU-GE from your deck to your hand, destroy this card, and as a monster has to be special by its own effect, can only be specialed once per turn, and if a monster on the field is destroyed by battle or card effect while this card is in the extra deck, importantly, it includes your card effect, you contribute a level 10 RYU-GE monster, and if you do special summon this card, then destroy up to 2 cards you control, and if you do, put that many RYU-GE continuous spells from your deck face up on your field. Next up are individual RYU-GE monsters. First up is Emva. You can discard this card to add the Sea Spires from your deck to your hand, and during your main phase, if 2 or more monsters are sent to the hand or deck to the graveyard this turn, except herself, you can special summon this card from your graveyard, and you can place a RYU-GE Realm Sea Spires on the bottom of the deck to banish an opponent's entire hand, and if they do, they draw the same number of cards. All of these are hard oneses. After that, we've got 2 copies of Hakva. You can banish this card from your hand to add a Worm Winds from your deck to your hand, and if a monster is banished face up while this is banished, and now there's 2 other banished monsters not called Genro RYU-GE Hakva, except during the damage step, you can special summon this banished card, and you can place a RYU-GE Realm Worm Winds you control on the bottom of the deck to add a RYU-GE from your deck, graveyard, or banishment to your hand, except herself. Again, hard oneses. Finally, Kaiva says you can shuffle this card from your hand into the deck to add Dino Domains from your deck to your hand, and during the main phase, if 2 or more cards were destroyed this turn, you can special this card from your hand. You can place a face-up RYU-GE Realm Dino Domains you control at the bottom of the deck, then target other cards on the field up to the number of different monster types on the field and destroy them. After that, we've got our starters. This deck kind of lacks a normal summon, so we are playing Diviner of the Herald. Diviner of the Herald, of course, really good at sending Herald and getting us to Mistva, which is full combo, provided we are playing Carboneddin. For the field spell to be a 1-card combo, we do need to be dipping into exactly this guy, which, importantly, if it is in your graveyard, can be banished in order to special summon a level 7 or lower dragon normal monster and face-up defense. The one we're getting is Galaxy Serpent. After that, we've got 3 copies of RYU-GE Rising, which adds a monster from your deck to your hand. Then you can add a RYU-GE Pendulum monster from your hand to your face-up extra deck. Then during your main phase, if you control a RYU-GE Pendulum monster, you can banish this and a RYU-GE from your graveyard to special a RYU-GE with the same type as that monster from your deck. That's 1 effect per turn and once that turn. 3 copies of Warzone. When this card is activated, you can take a dinosaur, a sea serpent, and a worm monster from your deck, put 1 in your hand, banish 1, send 1 to the graveyard, and you're locked except into those 3 typings. Now, This does not necessarily have to send the RYU-GE monsters. As I'm sure you can probably gather, we will be sending Carbonedon in the pure version, but there's a lot more you can do with this, and we'll see the flexibility as we look at other builds of the strategy. If you have Mistva in your extra deck face up, you can special summon 3 RYU-GE monsters with different types, one each from your deck, graveyard, and banishment, and that is a hard once per turn. Now, one final note before we move on from the field spell. That first effect, when this card is activated, take a Dinosaur, Sea Serpent, and Worm from your deck, 1 in the hand, banish once, and 1 in the graveyard, is mandatory. Obviously, that means that you do have some garnets, but importantly, it also means if you are under a continuous floodgate and cannot access your graveyard or your banishment, you are not able to even activate this card. That'll come up. We've got 1 copy of Terraforming, 1 copy of Dino Domains, 1 copy of Sea Spires, and 1 copy of Wormwinds. For non-engine, we're on Ash Blossom and Joyspring, we're on Droll and Lockbird, we're on Effect Veiler, we're on Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit and Piru, Crossout Designator, Called by the Grave, and Triple Infip. In the extra, we're on a bunch of links. Masquerena, Cerberus, SP Little Knight, Phoenix, Unicorn, Zelantis. We're on 2 copies of Verudrus, which we are actually making frequently. Typhon and Sky Thunder. We're on a couple of copies of Herald of Arclight and a couple of copies of Ventus for Herald reasons. And finally, we're on a Glaciosaurus, which importantly is a dinosaur. Like a big dinosaur that really does like being destroyed. Trust me. Let's check out a game. Our match is up against RYU-GE. What, you thought we weren't going to play against good decks today? We have what we need. They're going to begin with a copy of Foolos, and thankfully we have an Ash Blossom in our opener. We're going to begin with a copy of Warzone. Thank goodness we get to play Yu-Gi-Oh! Today. Now let's prevent our opponent from doing so. We'll go for the Hakva effect for a Wormwinds, then we're going to go Carbonedon in order to summon Galaxy Serpent. That banish triggers Hakva, which summons it to our side of the field. We'll activate the effect, shuffle that bad boy back, and then grab ourselves the Mistva. We're going to go for Glaciosaurus, then activate the effect of the Mistva in order to grab the Dino Domain. Dino Domain here is very fantastic. We're going to go for Warzone to summon them all back, and then afterwards we're going to normal summon a Diviner of the Herald, sending an Entis. Entis will pop the Glaciosaurus, which will trigger both the Mistva and the Glaciosaurus, summoning the Mistva, setting 2, and then bringing back the Glaciosaurus via its own effect. Finally, we will end on a Verudrus, set a card, and pass back to our opponent. They're going to begin with a copy of Ext, sending a Mirrorlogic Aggregator, which is frightening. That'll negate the effect of the Mistva, and the Ext will resolve as well. They're going to go for Cross. We can't let that resolve, so we will Verudrus the board here. Next, they're going to go for Bonfire. That is worthy of an Ash, in my estimation. They'll normal summon the Sword RYU-GE, but the Transcendosaurus Glaciosaurus' inherited effect will prevent that from resolving. They'll go to the end phase, and this should just be lethal on board. Let's just switch everyone to attack position and get in for a lot. Boy, these fellas are big. Next, let's take a look at the deck where everyone expects them to be playable, Swordsoul. This seems like an easy fit, right? There's already worm monsters in archetype. They want more worms to reveal and discard, and Swordsoul's got a pretty high floor, but a really low ceiling. This may push the limits of the archetype to the point where it's playable even without Tenyi. With that, let's get into the card by card. We'll breeze through the RYU-GEs. We've got, of course, Mistva, Emva, Hakva, and Kaiva. We are also playing 1 copy of Barhostis de Fiora, or Fathomer. Good name translation on that one, I'm going to be honest. This is because this card is easily accessible and can proc a significant amount of your monster's effects. We are playing the Protoss, which is inexplicably legal. 3 copies of Longwan, 1 Taya, 3 Moye, and 3 Incredible Ecclesia the Virtuous. You thought we were playing a cool card? No, it's just the alt art of this. We're on 3 Warzone, 3 Rising, the Dino Domains, and the Wormwinds. We're not playing the Sea Spires here. And then 3 copies of Emergence, 1 Prospy, and 1 Blackout. For non-engine, we're on the Imperms, we're on the Droplets, we're on a Called By, and we're on a Triple Tack. In the extra, we are on pretty much everything you would expect. Cheng-Ying, Agrine, Evil Longwan, Dragai, Draco Berserker, double Chi-Shao, double Bashia, 1 Typhon, double Verudrus, an SP Little Knight, a Reaper-Docus, which will probably come up in terms of having to modulate these monsters, and an IP Masquerena. Let's hop into a game. Our match is up against Malice, or maybe up against a whole bunch of Bestials. Sheesh. Okay, well, we are going to begin with a copy of Mistva. We'll activate the effect of the Mistva, and we will grab ourselves the field spell. We'll activate Warzone. We will go ahead and send a bunch of cards to the graveyard, and they will Ash Blossom the effect of Warzone, which means that we have to now fire off this Pot of Prosperity. Let's see what we're getting off the top. If my girl and Moye. Let's normal summon the Moye. We'll activate the effect that's going to grab us a token, at which point our opponent will foo a loss. Okay, no reason to overcommit here. Let's just go for the Chi-Shao. We'll activate the Chi-Shao effect in order to grab a Blackout and set a couple of cards. We'll pass back to our opponent. They will draw for turn. Another Bestial. Sheesh. They'll go White Rabbit into Link Decoder. They'll activate Druisworm, which is kind of an extender here. They're going to go for White Rabbit, summoning it to their side of the field and activating the effect in order to grab nothing. Our Chi-Shao will negate the effect of that White Rabbit, at which point we'll activate the Blackout and eat everything remaining on the field. Our opponent's going to go for a Baldrake, targeting targeting the Chi Xiao, they can get in for a fair amount of damage, but they can't kill us, which is important. Afterwards, they're just going to go ahead and link off for a Masquerena and pass turn, telegraphing that they do have another Bastille in hand. No big deal, no big deal. That Hakva is a great draw. We're going to use it for a Wyrmwinds, then we'll activate Warzone in order to get Emva and Kaiva and Hakva. From here, we will just eat a Bastille Druis Worm, which will trigger the effect of the White Rabbit. They will summon the White Rabbit, and then afterwards they'll activate its effect on field. We will Imperm. After that, they'll go Masquerena, and guess what? That was all part of the plan. We will Forbidden Droplet in order to send the Imperm and prevent the Masquerena from resolving. Now we'll go for Barostus, which will trigger the effect of the Mistva. We'll activate its effect in order to set Dino Domain, and Barostus to bring out Swordsoul of Taya. We'll go Wyrmwinds, and then afterwards we can Taya in order to banish Hakva and get a token. Next we'll go for Chi Xiao. Chi Xiao effect, Taya effect. We will go ahead and send a Longwan and Chi Xiao in order to get a copy of Emergence. That should be the right amount of stuff in the graveyard. It is! We'll go Protoss, and the banish will trigger the effect of the Hakva as well. We'll go Hakva, shuffle back the Wyrmwinds to go for a Kaiva. We'll summon the Kaiva and then overlay for a Varudris. This means in battle phase, we'll be able to activate the Varudris in order to get this copy of Druis Worm off the field and negate it, and we'll be able to eat the board in the process. We do a ton of damage so quickly in this strategy, and we walk with it. Finally, let's check out their application in Voiceless Voice. This one seems a little strange. After all, what does Voiceless care about worms? Until you realize that Mistva is a light dragon ritual. Therefore, in any hand with access to Scully, you can raise the hell out of your ceiling by using Saphira to snag this monster. In a deck with a repeatable and available game plan, your court-ordered single negate is going to hit harder if it's backed up by macro. Let's do the card by card. 2 Mistva, 2 Emva, 1 Hakva, 1 Kaiva, 1 Fiora. We're on 3 copies of Diviner of the Herald, 1 copy of Trias Hierarchica, triple Saphira, triple Low, double Skull Guardian, 1 Sauravis, and 1 Sauravis, but guy. 3 copies of Preparation of Rites, 3 copies of New Ritual Cage, double prayers of the Voiceless Voice, 1 Blessing, and then 1 apiece of the Warzone, the Sea Spires, the Wyrmwinds, and the Dino Domain. Finally, we're on a Prospy and a Radiance, and then our non-engine, triple Forbidden Droplet, double triple Tack, and triple Infip. In the extra, we've got all the cards that are fit to print: Anima, Masquerena, SP Little Knight, double Dynamondo, Unicorn, Access Code, and Underworld Goddess. The 2 Varudris, Typhon, double Herald, Chaos Angel, and an Elder Entity Entis. Let's check out a game. Our match is up against Fiendsmith Musket, and I really like showing off this strategy in particular. Voiceless Voice has a really hard time with decks that just keep going and going. RYU-GE? Not so much. We'll begin with a copy of Pre-Prep, then afterwards we're going to go for Diviner of the Herald. That's going to send from deck to graveyard a copy of Trias Hierarchica. We'll use the effect to summon it to our side of the field in the Diviner in order to summon a Low. We'll activate the effect of the Low. Low is going to go ahead and grab us the Cage. We'll go for Barrier, and we will grab a Saphira. Because we already have access to Scully, let's go ahead and grab Mistva. We'll use the effect of our copy of Saphira in order to get the Scully to our side of the field, and now that we have Negate up, let's go for Mistva. Mistva is going to grab us the field spell. We'll go for the field spell and send a whole bunch of cards to the graveyard in the Banish Zone. We'll activate the effect in order to summon the Hakva and the Kaiva and the Emva. Afterwards, we'll go for Barostus, and they will go for the Nibiru, at which point we can deploy our Skull Guardian. We'll go for Barostus. That triggers the effect of the Mistva. We will bring it out, and we will pop a whole bunch of cards so we can set 2 continuouses. Finally, we're going to go for Old Man and activate the effect of the Emva in graveyard to summon it as well. Finally, we'll set the Wyrmwinds, activate Emva, shuffling back the Spires, and cycle our opponent's hand, banishing it, and getting a good idea of what we're up against. They were kind of bricked by that, hilariously. They're going to go ahead and discard a card and then try to imperm the Emva. That's fine. They'll go Lacrima here. They're going to Lacrima in order to send the Fiendsmith, and then they'll go Requiem. That's probably a good enough opportunity to tag out Old Man for his Dragonic form. They'll go into Engraver and then activate the effect of the Sharvara in hand in order to summon itself out. They're going to go into a Caesar. That's perfect food for the Sauravis, at which point they pass turn. Great news! Let's just go to combat. Everyone to attack and get in for well over lethal. So we're back with the deck, and I gotta tell you, I really like these cards. Let's do the pros and cons. First, the pros. 1. The RYU-GE cards all revolve around a 1-card combo of Mistva, which gets you the field and fulfills the condition to let the field summon your 3 main deck guys. The main goal is to get Dino Domains on field and pop one of the 3, then summon the dragon from the extra deck to set 2/2/3 of the spells. The spells get you a Negate, a Dim Fizz on your opponent's turn, and a Bounce, but the deck shines when it's not played so basic. The field spell lets you add, banish, or send to graveyard any worm, sea serpent, or dinosaur, so you can do things like banish Giant Rex for a free body, send Carboneddin, as we did in Pure, to make the field a 1-card combo, or when used as an engine, you can add different decks 1-card combos to a hand, like Swordsoul or Overraptor, which makes the deck splashable in any deck that's in those monster types. Importantly, the 3 that we looked at today don't even scratch the surface of the decks in which you can jam these cards. 2. The RYU-GE guys are big. They're huge beaters. 3,000 attacks, so they're great for pushing OTKs, beating over problematic monsters, and shoring up weaknesses in decks that historically have failed to hit hard. And 3, the engine is fairly small. You can minimize it down to 9, and that gets you a Varudris in decks that could need the add and the negate, like Dynamorphia. And the cons. 1. The biggest con of the deck is that it is kind of weak to hand traps. The main combo of the deck requires 2 searches, one for Mistva and the mandatory search from the field spell. So if they droll you after your Mistva searches the field, you can't even activate the field. If they ash the Mistva and you have no access to the field, you are stuck. If they ogre Mistva, also stuck. The deck just struggles with basic interaction, shutting down its combo. 2. Ironically, Shifter and Lancia both hit the deck. Shifter prevents you from putting a RYU-GE in graveyard for the field spell summon, and Lancia makes it so you can't activate the field spell and banish one. And 3, the second biggest con is that all of the main deck guys are bricks, except for the dinosaur. If you only play the 9 engine pieces, since the deck can't summon them from hand, it makes it kind of clunky to be able to fulfill the banish, deck, and graveyard requirement for each piece. Wind and Water can put themselves in the graveyard or banish, but if you can't get the other one there, you still can't activate the field. Overall, the deck is a cute but bricky splashable engine with a nice payoff, but it has far too many flaws to see as much play as the other 2 archetypes and crossover breakers. Consider them if you want to give your pet deck a boost, but otherwise, we're going to have to wait for a Rescue Ace emergency-sized miracle. So that's that. Thanks so much for watching. These videos are made possible by, and occasionally suggested by, my patrons, some of whom have paid a hefty sum to be mentioned at the end of this video. Let's do that now. Thanks so much to About 99 Donuts, Elena Tincher, Alex Perea, Allison Elliott, Ally, Brett Henry, Cool Name, Darkmaster Zork, Derp and Dragon, DJ Elefante, FPS Lord Derp, John Piet, Killer Croc 467, Night Mary, Legal Rights, Lockstone, Luis Hernandez, Lullaby of Souls, Master of Faster, Matthew M. Derezzo, MBT Play Madolci, Mike Carlotti, N54 Lionheart, Nacho Gonzalez, Naxi Juto, Nebula Yu-Gi-Oh!, Project Mercury, Rohan Doge, Rose Lapine, Soul, Troy Says By Erasure Is Gay, Who's Nick, Wonder Waffle, and Yuki. Couldn't have done it without you.